us. I know we are a few minutes late into our live call. We had a couple of technology glitches. I don't know if you've recognized some of the changes that are happening to platforms lately, but seems to be every day there's something new. So even though we're very prepared, sometimes we've got to work out a little kink here and there. So welcome back to the Executive Encore video podcast. You'll notice I'm in a different setting today. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Patricia. And if you are a returning fan, I want to thank you very much for coming back, and I'd love to have you back. The Executive Encore podcast and the YouTube playlist is a series dedicated to inspiring women to forge their own paths as they embrace longevity.
There you go.
So today I'm broadcasting from my remote office in Georgian Bay, Ontario, and I'm welcoming Christina Beauchemin from Malden Bridge, New York. So you're just southeast of me, I think, far south. Okay. During the summer of 2023, Christina's friend asked her about her work goals, and Christina expressed her desire to help people live a real life. And she has an acronym that came out of that conversation. This real life is by focusing on resilience, emotional intelligence, and authenticity. These are key elements for limitless opportunities and creating your best life. Having overcome a challenging 3.5-year illness, Christina is now driven to inspire and support others living their best life. Join our conversation today about unveiling our strength as women, 60 plus, with a guide to understanding how the power of the words that we use affect our ability to create limitless opportunities for creating our very best life and being awesome as we live longer. Christina, welcome.
Thank you so much. And I just want to address the technology. I really am healthy. For some reason, on this platform, my regular camera will not start up, so I'm really not blue.
Oh, okay. Good. Audio's good. That's good.
That's perfect.
So that people can hear. And for those who are watching us on LinkedIn, and I know there are going to be a few people chatting with us on LinkedIn today, they've indicated their interest. So we'll see what happens, and all's good. Okay,
Wonderful.
so just Christina, when you and I chatted, you have an insight on how illness helps us understand our own strength. Could you please tell us a little more?
In 2008, I suddenly got very sick, and I went for tests for a whole year. They could not figure out what was wrong with me. And I remember standing in my kitchen at one point, after this had been going on for 6-7 months, just standing in my kitchen and realizing that I needed to start paying attention. That up until that point, I had my head down. I was doing what I felt that I needed to do. But I had a sudden insight that the illness was being caused by my own personal stress. So from that particular point, it took about 3.5 years to undo what had happened, because the stress then added, it really blew up a heavy metal poisoning that I had. But first they told me that I had multiple sclerosis, and I just decided that I didn't buy that. I have double vision. I still do. At the time, I was losing my balance and falling down. I was so out of balance between work and the stress. My husband had left, and the company that I was working for had just moved all their business to Chicago. And I had to start a business immediately because my son was in college. So it was like all this started to pile up on me, made myself sick. So I learned so much from that. I'm very careful about the words that I use, about, like, I always used to complain about my hair until I had alopecia, because my hair in its natural state is super curly and sticking out all over the place. I complained about my hair, and then what happened? I developed alopecia. I complained about how hard my fingernails are, and they literally came apart. And to me, it was such a giant message that we need to pay attention to what's going on in our bodies, how we're feeling stress in our bodies. Because I had no education on that at all before then. And it
Mhm.
set me on the lifeline of doing what I'm doing now.
I know that my fans and people who follow me, they all know that I faced a critical illness back in 2013.
Mm.
And facing my illness was one of the most challenging parts of my life, obviously, and at the very pinnacle of a very successful career and business. So there was a lot of things that I was set up to learn as well. And a
Mhm.
lot of what you've spoken about is it's not that we bring on the illness, but it's how we set up our body for a possible illness if we're
Mhm.
not paying attention to certain things. And I think that's the message that you are giving, right? Is
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm,
We have to
mhm.
take care of ourselves on every level too, not just our physical body,
Oh,
but
yeah.
be paying attention to our emotions, really paying attention to our thoughts, and paying attention to the spiritual piece of ourselves, which of
Mm,
course is part religion, but it's more to me, it's about relationship with our creator, relationship with the people around us, relationship with the planet. And when we're
mhm.
doing that, when something big comes in, our bodies, our minds, and our emotions are just much more balanced so we don't fall off the cliff. We're like, whoa, I'm a little teetered here for a minute, but now I feel better. Yeah.
One of the things that I learned was about my inner strength and my ability to endure. It wasn't about making shifts, but it was more about looking at the different parts of my life and what really needed attention at that particular time. And it
Mhm.
also made me realize that even at full capacity, my gauge is not at 120%. That,
Right.
but there's a capacity in that to find some joy, even when we're in that illness and when we're going through recovery. Sometimes an illness like that stops us in the tracks so that we can look at all the different parts of our lives and see how we can make our life better. So I think that's the message that you talk about as well, right?
That's exactly it.
Mhm.
Because it is just we constantly being in that place of understanding ourselves. And I think that's something that we don't do, we don't focus on, we don't think like we're learning so much knowledge all the time. Taking the knowledge and say, what does this say about me when I
Yes,
react to this
yes,
way? What does it
yes.
say about me and how I'm relating to other people? And I think that's a huge piece that we all miss.
It's the relationship with the self first, though, and not in a relationship to being selfish. It's about taking
Right.
whatever we're learning, like you said, and saying, what do I need to learn from this so that I can make things better for myself, have better relationships with other people, so that my inner strength and my inner wisdom is now coming out into the world, correct?
Absolutely.
And
I
affecting.
know absolutely. I learned so much about myself during that period of time.
Mhm,
First of all, I learned that I had incredible stamina. I had to
mhm,
get up and do what I had to do every day, even though I wanted to just stay in bed because I felt terrible. But I was like,
mhm,
no,
mhm.
I need to get up. I started reading uplifting books and
Ah,
doing gratitudes. That was huge for me. I had
mhm.
started doing gratitudes in the late 90s on regular basis, but during that period of time, I talk about it in my book. I call it the I Love My Life Challenge, where I started to just tell myself that I loved my life, even though everything was falling apart.
Yes,
And
yes.
then what I learned was I started to see things that I really did love about my life. Because when you're in that spin of, oh, I don't know what's going on and I feel awful, I lost track of some things.
Mhm,
And I started noticing them then. Wow, yeah,
mhm.
I forgot how much I love just going and taking a walk in the woods. What a nice day. And even noticing things like I was doing a lot of volunteering for an organization at that time, and I couldn't give that up either because I had committed myself to it. But I realized one day that she never said thank you.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, this is taking so much of my time. I never get to play my guitar anymore. So I backed away from the organization, got reacquainted with my guitar, and just really started writing a lot more songs and going out and performing. And it just made me feel it was like every step forward felt so wonderful. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. What do we need to remove from our lives that's almost on automatic and tap back into our inner strength and into our talents that give us that inner strength? I'd like to talk to you about perspective. We often hold certain beliefs as absolute truths. And I think a little bit of what you've talked about, like about volunteering and things like that, the goodness or the good feelings that come from certain things, but they do become like absolute truths to us. But are they really, or are they simply perspectives shaped on our experiences? So could you say a little more about that?
I talk about this over and over in my book because that's the point, is that we think that things are truths. Like everybody's always saying, my truth.
Yeah.
We only have a perception. We only have our own perspective. And that perspective is based on our entire lifetime of experiences moving to here. And when we look at things, like you go and I'll talk to people about things and they'll say, I don't know if that's true. It might be or it not be. It might not be. It's the way I feel because I read this book. I listened to this person talk about this and that person talk about that. So to me, using my logical brain, it makes sense. But I haven't read the books that you've read. I haven't talked to the people that you talked to. I didn't grow up in your family. So I remember even telling my mom that once when I was a little kid, I really can't judge. I haven't even walked one step in that other person's shoes because we don't know where people came from and why they feel the way that they do. But I've come to understand that most of life experience is our perspective on things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Experiences, because I was chatting with a friend the other day about one of my beliefs. And she said, when was the earliest time in your life when you saw that belief being molded, right? And what was it influenced by? Went back to when I was about 6 years old. And we had a great conversation about how that belief, that particular experience, gave me a perception that has followed me all my life. And talk about bias. It's shaped my biases. Every experience that adds to that belief, I'm really open to it. Like
Exactly.
it just supports everything that I believe up to today. So it's really
we all
tricky.
do.
Yeah, it's really tricky to unravel what we think is an absolute truth. But we can if we do the inner work. Talking about perspectives, one of the things that shapes our perspectives or what comes out of our perspective are the words that we use. So let's discuss the power of words and the words that we choose that can either raise us up or bring us down. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about the words that we use.
I think that we do need to be careful when we choose our words. My family kids me. They're always saying, you're always editing yourself. And I say, yeah, because the first thing that comes out of my mouth is my reaction. But then a lot of times I'll say, oh no, cancel that thought. What I meant was this, because I want to be really clear to you. And I also want to be clear to myself about what I mean. I recently was reading a book and I can't remember who the author was, but he was talking about going into the dictionary and taking the word impossible and cutting it out of his dictionary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, I took the word impossible right out of my dictionary so that I wouldn't be tempted. It was his way of making a point for himself. And I thought that was really interesting because every time we say, oh, yeah, that's not possible for me, that's impossible. How do you know? Have you tried? And just being careful to use uplifting words for ourselves so that we can feel better about ourselves. Because I believe when we get to know ourselves better and we feel better about ourselves, we can be better to other people. And I think that we need more of that in the world, especially today.
And their vocabulary has grown. I think as we reach our 60s plus, we have quite the vocabulary. In fact, we have a vocabulary that is very negative sometimes. And I do pay attention to the words that I use, especially when I talk about age. I use language such as living longer, which is positive, and remastering, which is different than reinventing. Remastering is taking everything that I've had up to now on my wisdom and remastering it into a better life for myself. I also correct friends and colleagues when they use language such as I'm too old or I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
do that anymore. And I
Mhm.
remind them that they are actually internalizing ageism. So they're turning ageism back on themselves when they use the stereotypical language. So reframing the language makes a huge difference in how we feel about ourselves and even the people around us.
I would totally agree with that.
Mhm.
There is something, especially the age thing, because we are a society that lifts beauty up. It's like, why are we not considered beautiful as older women? Why would anybody look at us and say, you're not beautiful? Because we're the same people we were when we were 25. We've
Mhm.
matured, we've gained wisdom. And I think I learned this. It was a very valuable lesson. When I was 25 years old, I got married, and the woman who lived next door to me was 87. I used to go see her all the time. She was the coolest woman that I had ever met in my life. Up to that time, she had come over from Germany, and she would always tell me all the stories about her life there and her life here. And I remember her saying to me one day that sometimes I look in the mirror and I say, who is that old woman? Because I feel the same inside today as I did when I had my first child at 22 years old.
Mm.
That
It's-
so stuck with me.
Yeah, I would still say, who is that woman? Who am I today? I see the
Exactly.
best version of myself today.
Yeah, that's why I'm just repeating what she said to me.
Right. Because
It's
yeah, if you start believing words like that, they become truths, right? For you, they become
right.
beliefs. And you think, you
Mhm.
are too old to do this. Everybody tells you you're too old to this. But I'm not going to tell myself I'm too old to do something. I'm going to do what I can do to my capacity. Now, my capacity may change, and I will acknowledge that, but I'm not tagging it with that's because I'm old or that's because my body's aging. It's because it's a different phase of life. Do I still need to be running 3 kilometers or am I happy to walk the 3 kilometers?
I went through that for a while because I had gotten something a couple of years ago, and it took a couple of high fevers, take some muscle out of my body, and I wanted to rebuild it. I decided I was going to measure myself before I started rebuilding the muscle and measure myself after. And it is incredible how the muscle has rebuilt itself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We can do
Yeah.
whatever we want. I never learned how to play guitar until I was 45. I
Mm-hmm.
never wrote my first song until I was 47. Now,
Yeah.
all these things that people would say, oh, you're too old. What are you doing? You're going to start playing the
Yeah.
guitar. Oh my gosh. I'm like, no, I still want to learn how to play the violin. That's still on my list.
Yeah. What we've been talking about, especially language, it brings to mind that's what these conversations are about, the words that we use. And this is a good segue into the executive encore segment that I called Every Moment Matters. So, Christina, could you please share a pivotal moment when you recognized what fulfillment looks like for you and when you determined that what you wanted to do to make every moment matter? You've alluded to some of those things, such as your guitar. You must get an amazing feeling, satisfaction from that. But
There really wasn't for me. It's been a path for my whole
mhm,
life. Like every day I get up and I realize that today is a new day
mhm,
and I can do whatever I set my mind to do with
mhm,
whatever restriction I have on that day. So I know for me, it really has just been a life journey. Like when I totally woke up in 2008 and it was like, whoa, since that time, it's new things all the time. There's
mhm,
always something coming up that's, wow,
mhm,
that would feel really good to do.
mhm, mhm. So I'd like to ask you how our audience can reach you if they want to continue this conversation with you. And you are an author, so
Mhm.
I'd like you to talk a little bit about how they can reach you and just reinforce the title of your book, where they can
Okay.
find it. And of course, this information will be in the show notes, but I'd like you to speak it now for some people so that it gets into their thoughts about how they can learn more about Christina.
Absolutely. The name of the book is Let My Legacy Be Love, a shortcut to self-loving. And it is a discovery of my own life, going in, digging in stories by story. The first one, I was 5. It started at a pivotal point in my life in 2008 when everything came crashing down. And then I realized that I had patterns in my life, and where did they start from? And I dug into them that way. It was originally self-published, and it was picked up by a traditional publisher in 2021.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And people can get a hold of me at Christina at getrealforgood.com. It's my new website is Get Real for Good. Honestly, I tried to getreal.com, but they said it would cost me $450,000. And I said, that's not going to happen.
No, you got a better one.
I really like the Get Real because it is for good, for your own good.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Christina.
I think we're good. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate who's ever listening. If you have any questions at all, like I said, reach out to me at Christina at getrealforgood.com.
Thank you. Living longer lives does provide us with more experiences, and it invites us to reflect on our strengths, not our weaknesses. We'll keep focusing, reflecting on those strengths, because we do build them just like muscle as we have those experiences. So, understanding our strengths and reflecting on our perspectives and reframing our language to honor healthy, age positive perspectives are crucial to finding fulfillment for women over the age of 60. This is where your executive encore begins. So please join me live or on the replay as I dive into captivating conversations with women like Christina and other thought leaders. We'll explore the secrets to personal and professional fulfillment as we embrace our long lifespans and we delve into the joys of finding fulfillment after 60 and other times as we tackle the challenges of navigating life with its joys and its unexpected setbacks. No matter what your age, your gender, your perspective on well-being and fulfillment, I invite you to be a guest on Executive Encore. Let's connect and inspire together. Please visit my website at patriciamuir.com and read the Encore weekly blog at patriciamuir.com/blog. And it's also published on LinkedIn. And subscribe to my newsletter that focuses on discovering what's next after 60. And I include the insights of my guests, such as Christina. So in 2 weeks, we will have Christina's podcast and video as a feature, and I will be writing a blog more around the conversation that we've had today. Until then, keep shining, keep growing, and keep discovering the strength within you. Bye-bye.